Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bleh. How did I fuck that up?
Statistically speaking, there's going to be a few of them that...
I guess. I mean, I've said it so many times. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I'm Leon Thomas. I'm joined by Austin Yorsky and Johnny Maloney. I know what the show is. I'm on it.
When you do that intro, you don't actually specify which is which. So, yeah, you're Leon Thomas, and you're joined by Austin Yorsky and Johnny Maloney. But who's to say who is who beyond the first intro?
Maybe this week we switched.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The guy with the sort of high voice is Johnny Maloney. The guy whose voice kind of alternates between a low pitch and sort of this weird squeal when he's excited is Austin Yorsky.
Is that a thing that happens?
I'm not sure that that distinguishes enough. I think the two of us could still very easily be mistaken for each other, and as I understand it, have been in the past.
The guy who said bean that way is Johnny Maloney. He's Canadian, and that's why he says words like that sometimes.
Yes, I speak English.
Yeah, he sure does. So anyway, that hopefully should distinguish between Johnny and Austin. My voice is unmistakably myself, so it's hard to figure out. Oh, did we ever do a callback or a follow up to who's the gay one based on our voice? Because it was it could have been the worst conversation, but it ended up being a funny one instead of a shitty one or a homophobic one. But the real answer came in the comments. It's Austin.
I see.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of having an actual answer to it is almost disappointing. But apparently, when your voice is heard by people who have never heard you before, according to someone in the comments, his girlfriend said of you, the gay one, once. I don't know what that means, honestly, because I decided to allow the comment to go through, but I didn't know what to reply to it. So I don't know.
I'm frankly surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. These are kind of like weird stereotypes, and I'm not really sure how to dissect them. But we do have an answer, I guess. And Austin's the gay one.
What a cruel twist of fate that the primary method of communication for white men has become podcasts, because it's the most difficult way for us as white men to express ourselves and also be differentiated. It's if you saw us on video, it's there's the ugly one and the uglier one, and then there's Johnny, who's very hot. But this is, of all the possible ways to deliver our opinions to people, this one feels like it's not using the format to its best, possible potential.
I'm not super comfortable, transitioning this into a video show.
And that would be absolutely ruinous.
Oh yeah, it would be really terrible.
We do face cams, and me and Leon are in the very tiny, tiny corners, little home screen icons, and the rest is just Johnny, fully nude from the waist up, lounging.
I feel like if we could do it all in the same place, then it might at least qualify as a spectacle.
Yeah. I feel like I have too much desire for control over my show to put my face on it next to Johnny's face. I feel like I would be overshadowed in a way, in the way that Cyclops is technically the leader of the X-Men, but everyone's really reading for Wolverine.
Yeah, Johnny is our Wolverine. Sorry to objectify you, but you are very handsome.
I'm just thinking about how, if we did decide to do a video show, how obsessed with set dressing I would become.
Speaking of handsome, Johnny,
you guys are completely mischaracterizing the fact that 90% of the time that I would be on camera, I'd be running around arranging things. Or bringing hors d'oeuvres or something like that, and
he's very
that
hungry.
just makes you more appealing.
You just hear me in the background, just from another room, go, "Oh yeah," or something like that.
Oh yeah, Johnny. Nothing kills your sex appeal more than being good at cooking and good at housework and shit. You dork.
No, you would be surprised though about how those qualities don't travel well just by looking at someone. Like you talk
fair.
about how podcasts are like the worst way for us three to get our our personalities and exchange ideas and feelings and express ourselves over the internet. Like, every positive quality that I have as a person does not translate into language. It's something that you kind of have to, like, absorb by proximity.
Osmosis
Before
and
you
taste.
recognize my value.
Yeah. You gotta get that special Johnny Tang. I was gonna say, though, speaking of handsomeness, a recent, very handsome addition to my household came into my life. I am now the proud co-owner of a life-size cutout of Danny DeVito.
What era, Danny DeVito? Because this is imperative. Is this Taxi Driver or like Taxi Danny DeVito?
This is like 2 weeks ago.
Junior Danny DeVito, or not Junior, Twins Danny DeVito, or is this like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia Danny DeVito?
It's not even like a promo shot from one of his works. It looks like a candid like picture someone snapped of him while he was waiting at Subway. It's just him, and he looks like mildly unhappy to be there, and it's full life size, and it's in my dining room.
In fairness, have you ever seen anybody happy to be at a Subway?
No. I thought you were going to say, has anyone ever been happy to be Danny DeVito?
I'm sure he's had a blast, so...
Yeah.
They're good times.
I'd trade a couple of years, just here and there, just pop in and see what the Vito's up to.
Mm-hmm. We've been engaging in a fun household game called DeVitoing, where while someone else is gone from the house, you hide DeVito in a place where he's likely to be stumbled upon, and it gives you quite a startle. Putting him in the shower is very good. Putting him behind the door in someone else's room so they walk in and then they close their own door, very good. Sometimes I'll just be sitting in my room reading my law textbooks and I'll hear, "Fuck! Oh, shit! Oh, God, it's just you, Danny."
Who purchased DeVito? How did this come about?
My brother bought him off Amazon. Amazon sells life-size cutouts of Danny DeVito, y'all. Don't look at the price tag; it's embarrassing.
All right, now I'm curious. Okay, I'm curious because you say life size. Now, is this life size for Danny DeVito then?
Yes. So slightly smaller than your average person.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
That would be a little worrisome. I mean, if you see like your height, Danny DeVito is in the room, it's like, oh, that's obviously not Danny DeVito. It's a cardboard cutout. But if it's like exactly the right height, then for a moment you might believe that it actually is Danny DeVito, just kind of wandering in. You know, I mean, he has to do something in between seasons of his show.
I think that's what they call the uncanny valley. Is when a Danny DeVito is regular human-sized. The human mind isn't ready to process it. I'm putting a link to the Amazon page now because I just typed Danny DeVito cutout into Amazon, and they were all miniature. And I don't want it to be confused. It's not one of the miniature ones. This is a full-size one, which I can't find through their search, but I have the link to. So there it is. Can you guys see it?
I can see
I'm loading it right now. Everyone, this is an interactive podcast, so you're going to have to do the Amazon search for yourself. Okay, so that's him.
I like it.
Standing there.
It's in the home and kitchen section, which is good because that's where he lives.
Sure.
Whoa! Hold on. Hold on a second here, because I'm looking at their guideline cutout size.
Yeah.
And it says 183 centimeters here.
I don't know what that
means.
means.
Tell me what that means in real units.
That's not right. That's nowhere. That's way past DeVito parameters.
It's way past DeVito parameters? What's a DeVito parameter?
As I understand it, Danny DeVito is only about he's under 5 feet. He's like 4'9".
Yeah, I mean, he's a smaller gentleman, but I want to distinguish it from the mini cutout, which they also sell for a quarter of the price. We didn't fuck with that shit. We went full hog.
No. I mean, the mini cutout is listed as being 63 centimeters here. That's
just garbage to me. Sorry. I don't know what any of those numbers mean. If you see in the related to this product things, the bottom, I don't know if they're algorithmic if you're getting the same ones, but they also sell a Jeff Goldblum life-size cutout, which I'm eyeing. It's very good. There's also a Ted Cruz life-size cutout, which would be very Halloween appropriate. It's October, get spooky. And of course, there's a Nicolas Cage and a Guy Fieri.
Yeah, I'm eyeing the Guy Fieri one right now, actually.
God, Ted Cruz is fucking terrifying.
Nothing. I was saying I'm eyeing Guy Fieri right now.
You gotta eyeball that Fieri, though.
Oh, my. Okay, well, this was a fun diversion.
I thought maybe there would be more juice.
I really thank you for it. Like, I don't have roommates. I live alone, so I'm not like expecting any kind of Danny DeVito related things like ever.
Amazon sells some weird shit, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it really sells everything, so I guess it would have to have weird shit in it.
I got a pillowcase here with Ed Sheeran's face on it.
Mm-hmm. All these life-size cutouts are the same price, except for the Bernie Sanders one, which is like half the price of all the other ones. I'm trying to figure out if there's like a subliminal message there, Amazon. What are you trying to say, huh?
I think Bernie Sanders wouldn't want you to spend that much money on Amazon because it is a horrible capitalist machine.
Yeah. I'm also reading down in the question and answer section, which Amazon has inexplicably. Question, is this a real Danny DeVito? Answer, only if you feed him after 12.
Oh, my. That's pretty good.
Question, are you sure it isn't life-sized? Answer, the mini one isn't life-sized, but it is still big enough to absorb my fears, like a Danny DeVito dream catcher.
All right.
Uh-huh. I'm just now I'm reading reviews, by the way.
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is what we've decided to do with this episode.
So far.
And that's fine. Yeah. Are there any, like, topics we have this week? Not that this wasn't fun. I want that to be clear. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But if we're hitting a dead end with Danny DeVito, we should probably move on.
Here's a 5-star review for Danny DeVito. 5 stars. Feng shui your home. Danny has forever changed our lives. There's no way to describe the look he gives me, but it brings me great joy.
He's kind of he has an expression. I feel bad for anyone who's not following us, what's happening on Amazon with us right now. But basically, Danny DeVito is just kind of looking. He has this like look on his face. It's not quite a smile or a frown. It's more like, yeah, this may as well happen. You know, he has that kind of look on his face.
Hey, here's another 5-star review. It's titled "Humongous David DeSchwimmo." It says, Danny DeVito was excellent as a professional wrestler, wonderful as the Prime Minister of Canada, and now he makes a top-notch cardboard facsimile. This may be larger than he actually is in real life, which circles back around to Johnny's contribution to the size discussion. So maybe you're onto something.
I just, like I hate to tell people like what their life experience should be. I mean, if something is life-size to you, then that's just like, live your truth, man, But at the same time, I'm sort of like, there is really only truly one DeVito, and everything else is just a graven image, and I feel like it should be scourged from the face of the earth as a false DeVito.
I'm sorry, one more. Here's another 5-star review. It says, amazing product. Comes just as described. For the longest time, I've had very bad bathroom anxiety. I can't stand peeking through that crack in the stall door. This has kept me from using public restrooms for 10 plus years. I ordered this product, and it fixed my bathroom life. I put this little hobgoblin man in the crack of the door, and peepers get a full face of gremlin when they look in through the crack. Worth every penny.
Okay.
You guys really need to start talking about something else, because I'm going to make this the show.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing. This is also a reference to something we talked about on a previous episode. I wasn't expecting to go back to this, but I got something clarified that we were confused about a few weeks ago.
Oh, I love to be confused.
Yeah. Well, this will actually wash that away.
Then I'm not sure I want to hear it.
Well, tough. Here it comes. Deal with it. So a few weeks ago, Johnny and I were confused about why so many women refer to themselves as sarcastic in their dating app profiles, and and Austin was sure that he had a good solution for this, and I was unconvinced. So this actually came up when me and my ex-wife are still friends, and we hang out like once a week. And we were talking about people dating, and I was like, "Hey, I have a question for you. You're a woman, and you've used the dating app. So, like, can I ask you something?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Why do so many women in their dating app profiles refer to themselves as sarcastic? Is that a thing, or did I just like find a weird batch?" But she immediately knew what I was talking about, and so it is a thing, and she does know why. It is a thing that women know, and a lot of other people just don't. So
are we allowed to know?
She told me, so I mean, I guess I'm allowed to put it out there.
All right.
The reason women refer to themselves, and that, like I said, this might not account for every single woman who has done it, but the reason it is widespread is because guys are jerks, and when women say something that's like funny about them to them, and they might misconstrue it as mean, like, and get defensive, because that is a thing that guys do. They get really insecure if a woman says something that isn't completely complimentary.
Like,
so they add,
like, those cheese tarts are just rubbish, Johnny. Go back to the kitchen and make more.
Sure. I mean, if you want to personalize it, we can definitely do that. But yeah, that is and guys, in addition to getting defensive about it, will also get angry about these kind of things very quickly. And so women write things into their profile specifically as pre-defense against this. So when they write sarcastic in their profile, it is a way of saying, "Hey, I'm just joking. I'm just joking around. Don't immediately freak out and say you're going to kill me now."
Oh, so it's a waiver for masculine identity so fragile.
It absolutely is. And again, I'm hearing this from the only source I can ask, and this is apparently a very, very common thing. It's apparently it's not the only thing that women put into their profiles as a way of self-defense. Another thing common is to show them lifting weights, as if to say, "Don't fuck with me." That is also apparently a thing with a very specific purpose. So I didn't realize I had to like decode any of this. But it's not there to be mysterious. It's there with a purpose, and it's a very important purpose, as I have learned. So I don't have any good jokes about this. I just thought that I would solve the mystery, someone solved it for me, and I would report on it.
I mean, that's basically what we said, though, is that it was to diffuse people saying that you have like a mean sense of humor. It's just that you added the context of it being self-defense oriented,
Yeah.
But that's basically what we said.
I sort of feel like that's information that I could have used. I guess, like it's weird. It's weird about what you think you're projecting.
Yeah.
And what other people think you're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
This
I was confused. Like I just thought it was another way of saying funny, but in a really specific and odd way. But nope, it's something else, I guess.
But there's always been a disconnect between what people think they're projecting and what other people receive. Like, we joke about, like, fedoras, which people think, like, says to the world, like, I'm a sophisticated man, I drink brandy from a glass, and, I am cool and good and masculine, but it actually makes you look like a fucking doofus, that no one takes you seriously, and it's, like, a pretty known cultural signifier now. Like, that's a thing. Everyone has...
Hot tip, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Gentlemen take their hats off indoors.
But that also is like, you taking your hat off indoors is a cultural signifier of like a certain etiquette learning, right? Like if you took you grew up with people who taught you that, and that means something. But it also maybe to a different crowd makes you look like kind of a stuck up, like rich asshole who maybe you need to get jumped in the parking lot when you leave.
I just mean that you can't, if you're trying to adhere to these like old, like obviously outdated concepts of like gentlemanly and chivalrous, there's no like halfway there. You don't dress the part and then be like, I'm a gentleman. It's a way of living.
If you're going to be chivalrous, then you really need to fight in some holy crusades. You need to go to some jousting tournaments. You really need to shoe your own horses. You got to take care of your armor. You need to hire a squire. There's a lot of investment to being chivalrous. You're going to have to
really, really impress her dad.
Well, you basically just have to buy her as long as you have enough money.
No. Make really, really veiled inquiries about her dowry.
I don't know if we have enough medieval knowledge between the three of us to actually go into in-depth lark about chivalry. It's been a while since I've looked over any of that material. Did you guys watch anything, play anything, listen to anything, experience anything worth sharing this week?
I watched the first, I want to say 2, but possibly 3 episodes of Neo Yokio. At I guess your recommendation.
Yeah.
Although you were confused, I think you kind of like went back and forth about whether this is like really great or so bad it's good.
I think it's both.
I feel. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here I'm laughing at it. But I'm laughing at the jokes. Like, the jokes are good. Mm-hmm. There are things that are meant to be humorous in this in a very unambiguous way. And I am laughing at that and finding that amusing. So, like, I haven't watched all of it, so maybe I've missed some of it. But I get why people are saying, like, oh, this is so bad, but it's hilarious. But I just think it's a comedy, and the comedy is good. Like, I'm not trying to undersell it. I'm just saying, like, oh, this is like a good show.
I wonder if you would feel like that if you didn't know that it was going to evolve in any way. Like, I think if you just watched it with no prior knowledge, you might not be so sure that they were jokes, right? Because I really stand by the observation that it doesn't ever break character. Like, it seems like the things Jaden Smith's characters say are things that you're supposed to agree with if he was the protagonist of a different show. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Because I've watched a lot of anime, and there are a lot of really fucking repugnant protagonists who say some real fuckboy shit, and you're supposed to agree with them. Like, a lot of anime is that.
I'm still struggling with Death Note. I'm not done yet.
That's a great example. Yeah.
The first episode has like 2 of the good guy characters or the friends of the protagonist call some other characers fuckboys though.
Old money fuckboys, yeah.
Yeah, he's old money. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of swearing in this. I wasn't expecting them to just say fuck.
Also,
in this show,
those
like,
2
right
friends
away.
are Desus and Mero. They're podcasters, and like they have a show, a TV show.
Okay.
They're like personalities in like the leftist scene. Do you guys know about these?
Oh.
They're big.
I don't know.
Okay. We should probably.
I'm sure they're great. I've enjoyed pretty much all of the entire show so far. I mean, again, I've only seen 3 of the episodes, but everything I've seen I've really enjoyed. So yeah, I mean, I really can't do a deep dive on it right now, and we have talked about it a bit last week. But yeah, I concur that it is very good. I'm not vibrating with joy the way you were, Austin, but I rather enjoy myself.
I hope I didn't inoculate you to some of its bizarreness because I went in basically knowing nothing about it, and it just blew my doors off. So I think you going again like, oh, I heard this is wacky, like maybe.
My impression, like the way you were describing it, I thought it was going to be like I was going to like groan at some of it and laugh at the rest of it. No, it's just it's a comedy and it's funny. I've had a good experience so far. That's about it. I may have more when it finishes. Although, this isn't your fault because we just let you talk. I do know now how it ends because you told me last time, but that's okay.
Did I? I just told you that there's a part where he yells "communism forever." That's not the actual end of the plot.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then I'll look forward to even more. Cool. That's it. I have some other stuff, but we can if someone else has another topic, we can go in.
I always got topics, Johnny. You want to jump in first, though? All right, Johnny's done. So I watched Netflix's series Narcos. They have a new season of that. Have you guys been watching this? The first 2 seasons were all about Pablo Escobar, but because of the way that real life story turned out, there's a limited amount of material for a Pablo Escobar show. So the new season is not Escobar related.
Oh,
so
I did not know that.
I haven't watched any of it.
I just finished the first 2 seasons of Sense8, but
I watched a couple episodes that I couldn't really get into it. We can talk about that, definitely. I just wanted to say about Narcos is I think it's a really interesting time in a show. I don't know if I can think of any show that really transitioned from one premise to another. If you guys can think of an example, definitely let me know. But this show basically was like, hey, this was a show about Pablo Escobar. And then it's not anymore, and now it's about the Cali cartel, and also the next season is going to be about a different cartel. It's just basically jumping premises.
Well, that's American Horror Story, though.
Yeah, that's an anthology series, right, where every season is self-contained. Narcos had 2 full seasons of just about Pablo Escobar, and also there's returning characters, so they're not even self-contained. It's a weird thing.
There have been shows where like the main character has been replaced, like in X-Files, but I imagine this is a bit different.
Well, that was bad. So,
look, I don't remember the dog eat years. I'm still working my way through the show again.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, I don't want to go too deep into it if you guys haven't seen the show, but basically I think they do about as well as could be expected for a show, changing gears as hard as Narcos had to. I think it's a kind of a natural change once you get into it, because the Cali cartel is very different in the way it actually operated, because these are all true stories, right? And Pablo Escobar's whole thing was like, I'm going to blow up buildings and just murder the fuck out of anyone who dares oppose me. And the Cali cartel was basically just a corporation that happened to deal in illegal stuff, and so they're much more subdued, and the story is really kind of about their chief of security trying to become an informant, and it kind of follows that character more than just violence and like drug stuff like meetings and gunfights and all that kind of fun stuff we've come to expect. So that was interesting. And the other thing that I'm very interested in is where they're going to go from here, because now they're like moving to Mexico, and there was a location scout. This is real life, not TV show. A location scout for season 4 who was like looking around in Mexico for places to shoot. And I think my understanding at this point was that he was murdered by actual cartel people in Mexico. Like this happened like a month ago.
Just sort of like wrong place, wrong time, or were they trying to make a statement about the show?
To my understanding, it was like he was that person. That's just he wasn't supposed to be there. Like he was like he was scouting too good cartel locations.
Right. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, and as the show catches up to the modern day, because Escobar is like 80s, and then it goes through like cartel stuff through the 90s. Now they're catching up to like people who are alive and active, and like there are now officially real world consequences to this show, which is scary, but also I think like interesting in a kind of a morbid, macabre way, because this show, I've talked about the show a couple times before, but I've never really gotten too deep into it. Like it very much doesn't shy away from America's fucked up drug policy, like the drug wars, how we've armed a lot of basically terrorists, how we've been very hypocritical in the way we've enacted drug policy to basically further our political goals and to install certain politicians who are friendly to our interests and turn blind eyes to, slaughters and all kinds of terrible things. And I've been on a like America's fucked up kick lately, and I apologize. Although America is in a place, look around. But I'm just surprised to see a Netflix original be so unflinching about that. And I highly recommend the show, I guess, is the end of this entire segment.
All right.
Well, I just finished Sense8, so I'm looking for something new to watch.
How was that? So Wachowski siblings, very like a bunch of different characters.
I want to say J. Michael Straczynski as well, I think, or whomever it was that created Babylon 5.
It seemed like it was like a high concept, cool science fiction premise, and I just didn't get attached to any of the characters, and it felt like it was like unearned levels of profundity right out of the gate that I felt like they needed to work up to, and I just kind of got tired out.
Well, yeah, because this is the thing, is that it like I was actually kind of bemused by the fact that they spent so little time on the premise, where there was like it takes like, I'm trying to think how far in you get before they actually start to explain like what the fuck is happening to these people. But for the whole series, like the only 2 seasons that exist so far, and I know that they're doing a finale movie that's coming out next year because Netflix has officially canceled the series because it was apparently ridiculously expensive to film. And they weren't getting the numbers that they hoped they would get with it, I'm sure. But it almost entirely like keeps that exposition based kind of storyline off at a distance, and almost like entirely focuses on the personal experience. So it's a very human show. And it's only like every now and again do you get this like little thing that kind of advances the greater arc of the plot. And because of that, I was kind of endeared to it. I was like, oh, this is like... Some of my favorite sci-fi stories are about the human stories that get placed within these weird contexts or strange situations that don't exist in normal life. And it was just so unabashedly aiming for that, about these people who just kind of had their lives upended and turned into something that, like, presumably it would be really difficult to do on camera, because having a group of 7 or 8 strangers who all just kind of share your brain, like, the only way to film that without it getting stupid is for them to just appear in the same room, right? So they have these scenes where all their lives kind of interact and cross at these particular points in time, and it's just people having conversations in rooms with each other. You know, so I can understand the whole concept, like your objection to it being an unearned grandiosity, right? But I feel like what they were implying, the connection, the underlying connection that people can manufacture between themselves, in this case, thinly veiled by this science fiction premise that, you know, there's a secret race of human beings, like, you know, they look just like us, except they're capable of telepathy, and, you know, they share brain space with each other and things like that. I feel like that goal, the aim to try and tell that story was so endearing that it just kind of pulled me in. Like, it was a really empathic story. And then, like, every now and again, they would just be like, oh no, the evil people are coming to get us! And I'm like, nah, fuck that. I want to see more about the secretly gay Mexican film star hanging out with the weird German criminal. You know, like, it was weirdly human. And you don't get... I get the feeling that it was probably a very personal story for them to tell. And I get that. I don't know if my knowledge of the Wachowski sisters informs my enjoyment of the show, but it reeked very deeply of some personal value, and honest art is my favorite kind of art. So it's not this is not a blanket recommendation, though, because by and large the show is quite a plotting, emotional drama. Like I said, there's a lot of scenes where, like, 2 strangers suddenly appear in each other's bedrooms and are like, what are you doing here? You're the girl from the club. The club? What? You were at my wedding. You know, and it just... It takes a while to get its legs, and even when it does, it has a tendency to still drag itself along in a particular direction. It's sort of like it wants to do two things at once, and one of them I wasn't really a big fan of, but I guess they were just operating under this old idea that there has to be an antagonist and not just a mystery, and but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I can say that. I will say that. I said it right there. Did you hear me?
Thank you, Johnny.
Yep,
I appreciate it.
I watched one episode of Sense8. It was the first episode. All I remember is that a very wet strap-on fell on the floor, and then it splashed. It was like, wow. And that's, I'm joking. That's not the only thing I remember, but it is the thing that I most remember. I decided not to continue watching. It didn't grab me right away.
What if Leon is secretly very horny?
It's the opposite of what's true.
That's what you say, but what if secretly on the DL you've just been mad horny all this time?
I know some people that who could attest to that as not true. But it's like
I like the humble brag in that, where you're just like, oh, I could be just totally boning down, but I'm just not horny.
No, I mean, I know some people who will be like, there is no way Leon ever wants to have sex. I'm sure of it.
I think I would know by now.
Okay, I don't know what that means. I was gonna say I feel you, Leon, because these days, like, I'll get that 2 a.m. you up text, and I'll be like, I really would rather be sleeping. It's just not worth it. Like, that sounds like a joke.
That's neat.
But I've reached a point in my life where I really would rather sleep.
Oh yeah, sleeping's great.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Best thing you can do in bed.
It's very good.
Yeah. I do have, like, I don't know if this is. We'll find out if it's funny when I speak it out of my mouth hole. Mm-hmm. I've learned only like this week that I really don't like my neighbors, which is a shame because I didn't dislike them at first. They're like a nice family. There's an apartment that lives like right beneath mine, so I guess they're my neighbors. Everyone else in the apartment building, I've never seen them or heard them. But there's a family that lives like right beneath me, and I see them when I get my mail. And their kids play like in the parking area, usually loudly, but it's like whatever. They're kids. I don't really care that much, and I can just do other things. But over the weekend, they decided to have 2 back-to-back parties.
When you say back-to-back parties, do you mean like how some clubs will be like, between 6 and 10, we're going to have a live band play, and then at 10 o'clock the DJ takes over so they can pack like 2 crowds in, like the posh hipster rock crowd at like 7, and then all the kids who want to like dance to the dubstep late in the same night, basically? Or are you talking like they had a party Saturday morning and then Saturday night? Or are you talking like...
Oh my God. Johnny,
just one long party that just had like a dull point in between?
Okay. Great speech, first of all. And second of all, I mean they had a party from 4 in the afternoon on Saturday until 1 a.m. And then they started to blast music again around noon the next day, for what I can only assume was a second gathering of people.
You don't know. That could have been the same gathering. Like, my party logistics handbook that I drafted back when I was an actor in college has, accounted for this large gap in time.
Okay. I look, we don't have to get into a big thing about whether or not it was 1 or 2 parties, but the point is, like, on the second day of partying, I had enough. But I don't want to ask. Basically, like, I don't want to like knock on someone's door and ask them to please turn it down.
What kind of music were they playing?
Loud Latino music.
All right.
I'm not sure that's relevant, but there it is. If you need it in your brain space.
I'm just trying to form a complete picture here,
no, that's
Leon.
Fine. That's fine. The point is, I didn't want to like ask someone to turn it down because I shouldn't have to, and also it's not a request. So instead, what I did was I blasted my music louder because I felt like that was petulant enough for me to do. That's the kind of like lowbrow shit I'm into. But it worked. 5 minutes later, they just stopped because they realized what was going on.
And what music were you playing?
I played something by Handel. It was I always say this, so they say the word wrong, saraband. Mm-hmm. And it's very aggressive sounding. So they for a song that is basically for dancing. But they were like, oh, everyone can hear each other when their music is loud. Maybe we should stop. And then they just did, which I appreciated. So there's that. Hopefully it won't continue, but my music is going to be louder than yours. Okay. So just, I will just keep going until they stop. The other thing I've noticed about one of my neighbors, this is, I can only see them like through the window and like in the, for lack of a better word, the lawn. It's an apartment building. It's not everything. Anyway, the point is, some guy, while I was trying to record, he dumped a huge trash bag full of Pepsi cans onto the grass and then stomped on them. And I was like, that's weird. Maybe he's recycling. I hope he stops soon. And then a few minutes later, he was done stomping his huge trash bag full of Pepsi cans. And then a minute later, he dumped another huge trash bag full of Pepsi cans and stomped on those. And I had a couple thoughts, and I'm like, first of all, why are you doing this right now and right outside my window? And second of all, you weren't out collecting cans. These are all the exact same can. What is going on? And it's like a small, it's just like I don't live in like a really exciting neighborhood anymore, where everything's like everyone's a criminal or something. Like, so this is the most confusing thing that's happened to me since moving to a, I guess, quieter neighborhood. I don't know. And by the way, I'm cutting this story a little short because it just repeats about 6 more times. Because this guy had about 6 or 7 giant trash bags full of Pepsi cans, and I don't know what was going on. I decided not to ask him because I feel like the mystery is more interesting than the solution. But basically, I've been having a lot of trouble recording my show lately because people are just being noisy in my neighborhood now. I don't appreciate it. I moved to a nice, quiet neighborhood for a reason. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to deal with it. And that's it. That is the thing I wanted to express. And now I'm done.
While you were talking, I went on the Amazon page for the Bernie Sanders life-size cutout because I was just curious if there were any good like socialism jokes in the reviews or the questions and stuff. Sure. And first of all, no. Second of all, 4-star review. Makes a great target. Best assault rifle target ever. So, not funny.
Look. There are some legitimate concerns about some of the things Bernie Sanders has said or done, even if you're like a left-leaning person. But I feel like he hasn't done enough that's so egregious that would make someone that angry. Like, how do I put this? He's not like a villainous politician. He's just a guy with whom I have some disagreements in policy and in practice. But I don't know. It takes a certain kind of person to think, yeah, this is the kind of guy who should get shot. So I don't know.
He wants to make the world better, but maybe it'll cost a little bit too much. We should probably kill him.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, that reminds me. I've talked before about the No Clip documentary series on YouTube. It's like a video game deep dive by Danny O'Dwyer. They do really good work over there, but they just started. At the time of recording, there are 2 parts. So I think a 6-part documentary on The Witcher that have gone live, and the first one is almost entirely backstory on Poland, leading up to CD. I'm pronouncing it wrong. People in the West just say CD Projekt. Obviously, it's not how it's pronounced to them, but I'm going to say that because I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of Polish pronunciation. They basically the climate in that country that led up to that company being founded and making The Witcher, and the whole thing is basically like socialist Poland was a gray nightmarescape, and there was no like money or freedom or art, and it was terrible. And then we made The Witcher, and now we have, art and life and love again. It's basically the story they're telling. And obviously, if you've listened to this show, you know that I'm a big old, like, leftist, socialist, basically, like, deep in that thing. I don't want to, like, paint myself in too much of a corner, but watching it, of course, I had conflicted feelings, but I don't want to pretend like there aren't good points in there. I think it would be intellectually dishonest for me to ignore that stuff just because I happen to think that people in America should be able to get medical care, right? Like that's something that I feel like a lot of the people, even people I respect, will do that move. Well, they'll be like really into good stuff and ignore legitimate criticism. So I'm obviously kind of working off what Leon just said about Bernie Sanders. He's like, I disagree with him, but like I feel like you also agree with them on a lot of stuff because there's just good points to be made about the wealthiest country in the world being able to take care of its citizens.
Yeah.
We also have to make the acknowledgement here that that socialism can take many forms as well. You can get your like weird Harrison Bergeron socialism where everybody gets held back because it's the only fair way to do it, and then there's like proportional socialism where it's like, hey, you make a shit ton of money, so proportionally, you really should be able to afford to give more than most people back. Huh?
Yeah. And I feel like I have an above average understanding of this, but I wouldn't hold myself out as an expert necessarily. Like there are things I'm an expert in. This is not necessarily one of them.
That was nowhere near an expert opinion. I was just, that was the least expert opinion I think that anybody possibly could have mustered. I referenced a Kurt Vonnegut novel, or short story, pardon me, and then made a phrase up.
It was awesome. I just want to be clear, though, because I feel like I do take a lot of political stances on this show and don't maybe necessarily provide full context and nuance. And I think nuance is important. I think context is important. But this is also kind of a goofy conversation between three people. And I don't have time to, dig out sources every time I say some flippant garbage on here. So I just want to acknowledge that it's not perfect, and that like watching this documentary I was like, yeah, it's socialism isn't a great solution to art. It's maybe medicine, the police, roads, like there's a lot of things that socialism is ideal for in a society,
like common interest.
And I just want to be clear that I know like I know, so I'm not blind to that, but it's just not always enough time on our comedy show for the important caveats that, probably should be in these conversations. So now that's on air. So for the next 50 episodes, I'm going to completely ignore it because I said it once, and that's how it works.
Great.
Because everybody takes us so seriously in the first place.
That's true. I just feel like I have trouble. This is for me, frankly. At the end of the day, I have to live with myself. Okay. So whether or not our listeners needed that, I want.
So this is your waiver for capitalist ego so fragile.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've said before, like capitalism has given us a lot of great things, technology and advances and things. Yeah, Pop-Tarts, very good.
Yeah,
actually, too
Sneaks.
Sweet. Okay, now we're just devolving into nonsense. Do you guys want to do questions?
Glass.
We can do questions. I just want to say very quickly that I watched one episode of a reality show a few days ago because me and the aforementioned ex-wife, we hang out like once a week on Thursdays to watch a show or a movie, and none of our shows came out. So she was like, there's this show called 90s House that I really want to watch, and you think it was funny. I'm like, all right, let's watch 90s House. And it's exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of people who are like in their 20s and like don't remember or were not born in the 90s like, well, they were born in the 90s, but they don't remember it because they were born in the late 90s, are put into a house and everything is from the 90s, and it's hosted by like Lance Bass, and they perform 90s related competitions, I guess, and see who gets better.
So like looking for movie times in the newspaper?
You're
waiting for your dial-up modem to connect to a BBS?
You're only a little off, but here's the thing. Like, on the surface, that sounds like a really harmless show to watch. And I had not seen a reality show in a long time, so I just thought that that's what that would be. It's not. And maybe this is true of all reality shows now. But when, I've seen some before, like years ago. And usually when there's like a house that a bunch of people have to move into and get along or not get along, there's always like archetypes, much in the same way that like fictional characters in movies are kind of archetypes that there needs to be sort of like a diversity of opinion and style in order just so that like characters can play off each other. And that's also how casting used to work. There was like the nice one and the shy one and the wild card and the bully and something else. And that was
the girl who gets murdered first.
Sure. And that's how these things work out. It's not on this show. Everyone is the wild card / bully. Every character, I shouldn't say character, every human being who is a real person and interacts with the other real people on this show is just the most. They're people who grew up wanting to be on a reality show and have developed a personality for it. And I hated them all, but it also gave me a great idea for a horror movie where someone posing as a studio executive hires a bunch of like the worst people to be in like a house, like, and it's like 80s house, and like they get picked off one by a serial killer, but at first they think that, oh, it's like an 80s slasher movie, that's all that's happening, and then they realize it's not. And the twist is that the executive just hates people who are shitheads and wanted to bring a bunch of them into the house and murder them. So that's one good thing that came out of this.
Leon, did you just spoil the ending to the movie that I haven't yet watched because you haven't made it, because you haven't written it, because you just came up with the idea only a minute ago?
I'm afraid so, Johnny. So this thing that will never happen, yeah, it's ruined now. But yeah, if I ever do write a screenplay, that's probably going to be it, because it would be really cheap to make, and I also think it might be good. So there you go. That's something. I just wanted to get that out there because it's been deep inside of my mind, even though I've only seen one episode of this show. Nobody should watch it. I'm not doing this. I'm not saying like, oh, it's so bad it's good. No, it like hurts my soul when I think about it. Everyone was just like incessantly mean to each other and snotty, like every single character. There's no like nice one. Even the one you think is nice, every time they go to the confessional and they tell, like, he says what he's really doing, he says like he's pretending to be nice to fool everyone, and he's actually the worst one of all. It's really bad. Like, I hate that this is a thing for people, for real people to want. So that's something I wanted to say. And yeah, we can happily transition into questions now. Austin, you there?
That's me. Yeah. I was muted and I was reading questions to see which one we should do.
Okay.
Here we go. I'm going to say Cosma asks, what things do you have on your bucket lists?
Write a bucket list.
Yeah.
Deep death questions for Word Funk. Yeah.
I have like goals, but they're like incremental and not like big. Like, ooh, I want to go skydiving or something like that. They're more like business related, and like, really boring if I'm being perfectly honest. So I'm not sure if I have a great answer to this one.
I'm just a day by day kind of person. I don't think in the grand scheme of things. When I think in the grand scheme of things, I go spiraling off like into galaxies beyond, and just be like, "My God, there's nothing," and that's just really bad for like a getting out of bed attitude.
Oh gosh. My goals are like, like, oh, I need to make, let's say, 1,200 new subscribers this month. And then that will be good for my business, and that's really it. I don't have a lot of like big like long term.
See, I'm gonna have pizza for dinner.
Ooh.
I like how we just glossed over that Johnny says anytime he thinks about the future, he has an existential meltdown, and that's just like, we're like, yeah, it sounds like Johnny. That's fine.
I try not to think.
It's
about...
on brand.
Yeah.
The brand is strong.
Yeah, I try not to think about death because I've realized that there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm like, I wouldn't say I've stopped being afraid of it, but I'm like, just fuck. Like, I used to think about death a lot, and it's because the same reason I think about all like worst case scenarios a lot is because the more I think about it, the more I can come up with solutions to them, and once I've come up with solutions to them, I feel better about it. But there is none. So it's
drink more green tea.
It's like pointless. So I wouldn't say I've stopped thinking about it, but I've like conditioned myself to stop thinking about it when I start thinking about it.
You know what's weird is that I remember growing up, a lot of people like all the deep middle school feelings about like coming to terms with mortality and being scared of death has transformed into this kind of, I don't know if it's just internet, but that's definitely where I see it. This internet kind of meme about everyone wanting to die. Everyone's like, I can't wait to die. We get real psyched about dying. It's like I don't know if it's just millennial or something. We've like totally ironicized death. Ironically, I don't know what the word is. Words are hard, but like that's like our coping mechanism with mortality is to just be like into it now.
If I were you guys, I would like adjust that just a little bit to be like, can't wait to be dead, because being dead and dying are two very different things.
Yeah. It's true. My question for the bucket list thing, for the longest time, it was just like I wanted to get something published, like some kind of art or something before I died. But now I have like a pretty successful narrative podcast with like hundreds of thousands of listens and like fan art and stuff. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like the millennial version of having a book published almost. And I feel like just once you adjust your expectations, I've kind of met that. But I guess it would still be cool to be like, have a book in a store if bookstores exist in the next couple of years. Probably not for long, but that's the thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Jade Skellington, which is our Doctorate of Questions Halloween name, asks, which Star Trek series had the best uniforms?
Ooh.
And there's a second part for Austin, which is thoughts on Ixalan, which is the new Magic the Gathering expansion, so I can have a part of this question while you guys talk about Star Trek.
I'm fond. I when I was younger, I was very fond of the Deep Space Nine uniforms that they got halfway through the seasons. They're like mostly just gray, except with like a little bit of color underneath. But the more I think about it, the more I like the original series uniforms, because all the other major powers in the Star Trek universe, they wear gray and black uniforms. The Romulans do, the Klingons do, the Jem'Hadar do, the Cardassians do. Like all of the aliens have like gray and black uniforms, and I thought, and I noticed that like a couple years ago, I was like, that's really weird. I mean, I realized that's costuming and something to make them look menacing, but like. The Starfleet is the only organization or major organization in that part of the universe or part of the galaxy that wears like flashy clothes. And it was like I started thinking, like, do the other alien races make fun of them? Just like, where's your gray shirt? So I'm fond of the original series, like very bright Technicolor clothes. Now,
I'm gonna go dark horse here and say Enterprise.
With the jumpsuits, with the utilitarian.
They're the most. they're the most practical.
Yeah.
You know, like I never really bought into the whole like. I mean, Deep Space Nine gave us a little bit of this because Chief O'Brien was like one of the main characters, and in the first couple of seasons, like Deep Space Nine was a hole, so he was always like crawling through something or like getting his hands in something, and it was like every other Star Trek, everybody's clean as fuck, like crisp, like you woke up early and you didn't even iron that new uniform. You went to the replicator and were like, make me a fucking Tuesday uniform, and it just came out like freshly pressed and everything. Like you don't even do your own goddamn laundry, you know? And space travel I don't think is ever gonna be like that. You know? There's always gonna be guys who fucking like work in the engines and are like, yeah, I need pockets. 'Cause I gotta keep stuff with me, because I gotta put my hands in the goop and twist this thing, and then get goop on me, and then lift this thing and put it down in some other goop, and then, you know, I gotta wash up. And I'm like, yeah, jumpsuits, man. Like, but it's like every other Star Trek, it's like, ah, yes, I'm the chief engineer. Do you like my lapels? You know, I was never like, yeah, I buy that. Yeah, no. So, like, you know, the Enterprise uniforms, I was like, yeah, I see it. I mean, you know, utilitarian, multifunctional. And I also like it how it wasn't easy to discern a person's rank by the color that they were wearing. So, like, if you were a sniper up in the hills, being like, shoot the guys who are in the red. Those are the important ones. Like...
It's a very interesting take.
I mean, you know, there's a famous general during the American Civil War who basically was like, I better go to the front line, and they were like, are you sure that's a great idea with that hat and that jacket and that like super expensive horse you're on? And he's like, why, I have no idea what you mean. And like 15 minutes later, somebody's like, oh my god, somebody shot the general.
That's how they talked back then.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my colonial New England accent.
Well done.
Thank you. I trained in theater school on that.
Yeah.
That was a bit from my Paul Revere days.
Okay.
Money well spent.
I don't even know if Paul Revere was New England. Don't at me, bro.
Yes. I was in Boston. For the other part of the question, Ixalan is the new expansion for Magic the Gathering. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as possible so Leon doesn't die on air. But it is like Aztec, Inca, Mayan themed. So the basic set, like the last one was Egypt. The one before that was just like India, but steampunk. So they're kind of doing, it's like a cultural appropriation era of Magic the Gathering right now. I think this is probably like not, so it's like a sliding scale, right? Like all cultural appropriation isn't bad, right? It's a thing to think about, right? So if you're profiting off of an oppressed culture that exists now, that's pretty fucked up because you could just hire those people and help them. But like the Inca aren't around anymore, and the way they've framed Ixalan is like the Spanish conquistadors are literal vampires, and the native tribes are like heroic, cool dinosaur riding like badasses. So they've kind of recontextualized it in, I think, a pretty interesting way, and I don't think it's necessarily exploitative. So I'm pretty into the basic theming, and like as a card game, this set is tribal, which means it's based around certain like card types like dinosaurs, vampires, merfolk, pirates, which are pretty exciting tribes. I'm not super into any of them, and there isn't any tribes in the colors I like to play. So for me personally, less exciting, but I think it's a well-designed set. Although there aren't a lot of cards that I think work well in faster formats like Modern. I think it's a pretty good Commander format. There's some really good like dual-faced ramping artifacts and stuff. So it's good for, I think the Standard is going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be good for Commander. Not so exciting for Modern, and not so exciting for me personally, but I think the flavor is good. The art's really good. A lot of really colorful feathered dinosaurs that are really sick. But so I would say Ixalan is probably better than Amonkhet for me, but not as good as Kaladesh, which I really, really liked. So that's what I think about Ixalan. What did I do? Did I get that in under a minute? It was close.
Good enough.
All right. This can't be real. I'm going to read this. You guys can tell me if this is real. Darkent Reltnark says, I found out that in my country, a minister was appointed because he had the same last name as the person they really wanted, and they called him by mistake, and when he showed up, they decided to appoint him anyway because he was already there. Thoughts on that? That can't be real. Is that real?
I don't...
It depends what he was minister of.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a very important position, then that probably would be a mistake. If it was like head janitor, then then I'm sorry, that's rude and kind of classist. Janitorial work is very important. I did that. I was a custodian before a long time ago. That was a shitty thing to say. I'm sorry. But what I am saying is that that'd be fun.
I'm less honestly against that these days, because the fact that someone is quote unquote legitimately put into a position of power in a government is clearly fucking meaningless. There are no safeguards and no barriers and no tests. So just calling someone out of the phone book is just as good as going through the proper channels, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
Johnny, any thoughts? I'm trying to... How do I Google this to find out? It should say what country you're from, Dark Kent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you would start that.
Yeah.
It sounds Scandinavian.
I don't know what that means.
No, I'm not saying the policy sounds Scandinavian.
Jeez, Leon.
No, I'm not saying the policy sounds Scandinavian. I mean the name has that kind of like rough edges that
I'm on to you. Sai Mothra, which is I believe a Halloween name for this account, asks, Leon, any predictions for Hell in a Cell this Sunday? Parentheses, wrestling.
Yep. I wish that Hell in a Cell wasn't a pay-per-view. Basically, a long time ago, they came up with the concept of Hell in a Cell. It's just a steel cage match with a top on it where you don't get out, and that's like, ooh, it's scary. They fight each other because they hate each other so much that only the cell can contain them. And it would be like very rarely brought in, to blow off a huge feud that had been going on for a long time. But now they just do it once a year. That's just the name of a pay-per-view now. It's called Hell in a Cell, and there's usually 2 cell matches, just to water it down. And it's less special now, I guess. And I'm not a fan of that. Thoughts about this upcoming one? I'm looking forward to Usos versus The New Day. They're all good. They're all great. So I'm gonna enjoy that, I guess. I hope Shinsuke Nakamura becomes WWE champion, but I don't think they are, because the guy who is champion right now is like their biggest Indian star, and they're about to do a tour of India in a few weeks. And so it's like, they're probably going to keep the belt on him to drive up ticket sales. That'd be a good idea. I guess that makes sense. And good for them. So those are my thoughts, I guess. Sorry. I'm going to watch it. It's an event for me and my friend, and we're going to watch it and get takeout.
Is it the Spider-Man bone saw thing?
What? No, that takes place. Wait, I don't remember if that took place in a cell or just a regular cage. You know what? I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that one. All I remember from that is there's a meme of that now where Spider-Man sort of like homophobic remark to Bonesaw is like called out, and it's great. It's really great. You should look for it. It's great.
I saw that.
It's great. But yeah, I don't remember enough about that movie. It's been a long time. I saw it in the theater and then never again.
Nice.
Interesting fact, Austin.
Me.
The general that I was thinking of in the previous question, Sir Isaac Brock.
Weird. Cool. Listeners, that's also the name of the lead singer of Modest Mouse. Anyway, the question asker Sai Mothra, I just realized, is Cyretha, who asks a lot of questions. I'm dumb. She also asks, Austin, are snakes a big pest in your part of Florida? So I know I tweeted about this. My roommate got bit by a snake like 2 years ago, like in our yard, and I remember when I was younger, I almost got bit by snakes a couple times, but my most of my snake contact came from when I worked at a lawn maintenance company. We did a lot of like really big industrial fields where it's like the grass is up to your knees, and you have to get like on those and industrial sized riding mowers, and it takes like an hour and a half to go like row by row and knock all of this grass down. And after you do that, you have to go in by hand and like walk through the field to make sure you didn't bust any sprinkler heads, because sometimes they stick up depending on the kind of sprinkler. And one thing that happened a lot was you'd find half a snake, which is unfortunate. Obviously, it's not ideal. It's not the point, but you can't rid every field in Florida of snakes before you mow it. So it was kind of inevitable. So yeah, I mean, snakes are definitely around everywhere I've lived in Florida. I've never been bitten, but I know a lot of people who have. So depending on what your meter is for pest, I think probably for most people that's pretty bad, right? You guys have any snake experience?
No.
You're snake-free, Leon. That's what they call him.
Yeah, it's true.
I got a friend who like has a pet snake.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not really sure that's a snake experience so much as it is like a snake adjacency.
Yeah. You guys are snake free.
Yeah, I had a friend with a snake growing up. It was definitely not my snake, though. My friend fed it mice, and I had weird feelings about that. And I was like, where do you get all these mice? I thought to myself.
Mice store.
I guess. I mean, it seems... it's... Yeah, now that I think about it, like... Are there just places that specifically... I mean, I guess there would have to
Yes.
be.
Yep.
Yeah.
The pet store.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
And insects too, actually.
Yeah, I guess for that very specific purpose is what I'm trying to say.
I feel like everybody knows one person who had a snake growing up. I feel like that's a pretty universal experience.
Oh
Okay.
no, I this guy was an adult when we met.
Maybe emotionally a child.
Look, sometimes people can have snakes. Let's not like knock on anyone.
No,
who
it's
might have
totally
snakes.
fine. I'm just saying it feels like everyone I know knows a snake guy.
Okay, I guess when you buy a snake, you have to like accept that you're like gonna be like, in charge of like mouse genocide.
If you buy a snake, you become a snake guy. That's just like people can own a dog without being a dog person. You can have a cat without being a cat person. But if you commit to a snake, you're a snake person. You're living a snake lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's fine. No judgment. Snakes got to eat. I feel you. But
there's a heavy burden of pretext now that you have adopted in your life, because anybody who is about to walk into your dwelling, you have to in advance be like, oh, by the way. Like, you don't just spring that on someone.
it's also not something you could accidentally wander into, right? It's not like, oh, I left out some food for a neighborhood stray, and then it came into my house, and I was like, I guess that's my cat now. Or it's like, oh, my friend dog had puppies, and I took one. It's fine. Like, you just don't bumble into snake ownership. It's a thing where you're like, I am okay with feeding live mammals to a reptile with regularity until one of us dies. So, I don't know where that came from. I just feel like I suddenly had very strong feelings about snake ownership. Anyway, new question. Toshiro Kuru, our question guru, asks, what are your opinions on the video game Vanquish? Do you guys play Vanquish? It's on PC now.
I never played it.
No, I have not.
Yeah.
Oh, I played it. So when it came out, it reviewed very poorly, but it had a pretty strong cult fandom, and I think over time its reputation has grown to be one of Platinum Games' most beloved titles. I like it a lot. I feel like it.
Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Sorry, I was a little confused before.
Yeah, Vanquish it's a game where you're like a guy in a robot suit, and the main mechanic is you slide across the floor while shooting. It's a thing you kind of have to do, and it contrasts nicely to a lot of games that were made around the time, like Gears of War, where you spent all your time sitting behind cover and just kind of shooting gallerying your way through. That was a weird thing to say, shooting like playing like a shooting gallery, where Vanquish was much more active. You had to constantly be ducking out of cover and sliding. So it felt more frenetic and exciting. My problem is that it ends right as the story begins, which is pretty disappointing. And also it doesn't feel like there's a lot of variety in the enemies. It's like a lot of robots. And so I don't think it's everything it could have been, but I think it's a strong foundation and it has a lot of style. So I think a Vanquish 2 would have been like where it hit its stride, but it didn't sell well enough for that to happen. So I think it deserves its reputation as being better than people thought it was, but I'm not out here singing the gospel like I am for like similar games like Nier, where I'm like, nope, y'all just slept on it. You fucked up. It's way better. Okay, another video game question. I don't know if any of us have played this, but I'm sure you've all seen it. Dr. Butterfingers asks, thoughts on Cuphead? Have you guys seen Cuphead?
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm more familiar right now with the controversy around people talking about its difficulty.
Yeah, there's been like several waves of this controversy. The first one was there was a person who posted gameplay footage of themselves not being able to get through the tutorial. And of course you had your... Gator Gates coming out in force saying it was proof that, video game journalists are all corrupt idiots, something, feminism. And then the game came out and there has been, I think it was Rock, Paper, Shotgun had like an editorial about how you should be able to skip boss fights and maybe talked about Cuphead. I'm not as plugged into all the different outlets as I used to be, but there's a lot of conversation.
That article in particular was not it didn't directly address Cuphead, but there was another article that came directly, like almost immediately after, because the first article that you're talking about the boss skip button was how the new Assassin's Creed Origins is going to have like a tourism mode essentially.
Yeah, which I'm definitely into, but there's this difficulty discourse is happening now.
Yeah. And so there are people saying that, the difficulty in games isn't inclusive, so like people who have like mobility problems or like not a lot of time in the day or anything like that to play video games are basically, barred from enjoying Cuphead. But then there are other people who are saying, oh, well, difficulty isn't meant to be a barrier, it's supposed to provoke an emotional response, it's actually a part of the narrative that they're trying to tell, like dying and failure is a part of the game, and there's a lot of hand-wringing and over-explaining, and...
Yeah. For those who don't know, Cuphead is a very difficult bullet hell boss rush game in the style of like a 1930s cartoon. It's fucking gorgeous, but I'm not super psyched about the fact that during development they went and added some non-boss fight stuff to pad it out, which also it's Xbox One exclusive on consoles, which is kind of a bummer. So, I mean, that's kind of tangential to what we're talking about, but I feel like everyone has at least seen a screenshot of this game, and it looks amazing, but I also think a lot of people who like the way it looks won't enjoy it because it's balls hard.
I saw my friend Tom, he is an evil genius white, play it on a stream, and I said, neat. That is the kind of game I would play if I played video games anymore. I was like, yeah, it does look very cool.
Yeah. We talked about this back when there was a controversy of, like, should Dark Souls have an easy mode? And it was like, for a lot of people, the difficulty is the point of Dark Souls. And if you had that option, people would feel like they achieved less or something. And I understand, like, subjectively that devalues it for them, but it would also make it valuable to a lot of other people. There's no easy solution. I don't know.
It does, like, there's a really great part in the I think in the Rock Paper Shotgun, the second article, where it talks about how Cuphead and accessibility and why there isn't an easy mode or something like that, where it says that there's really no such thing as canonical value to an experience in a game. Like, it makes absolutely no sense that your completely isolated experience in a way that you choose to play your game should be influenced by a completely different isolated experience of the way that they choose to play their game. Like, you can't, even as a developer, you can't dictate value. So to go ahead and say something like, oh, well, difficulty is part of the experience, is like, that's not the experience I want. I have, like, ever since reading about how not only is Cuphead like extremely difficult, but also how if you decide to play it on simple mode, then parts of the game are barred from you.
Yeah. It like gives you an option of beating a boss with like it's easier and it has less things you see, and you're like, well, I just want to get through this, and then a screen pops up and it's like, well, you can't get any further in the game, dumbass. Go back and actually do it right. And it's like, why the fuck did you even?
Why is that there? That has deliberately pushed me away from wanting to play the game, because I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for that. I don't want to push myself up against a game that's like super super difficult that if I dedicated myself to, like, I'm not saying that I could not beat it if I didn't try. What I'm saying is I don't have the time I want to dedicate to that. I would rather do something else than spam the same boss for, like, a couple hours before I, like, get his patterns down pat and then be like, watch me ace this bitch now. Like, no.
But
I'm busy.
But, I mean, by contrast, like, I really like the Dark Souls game, and I think that if they were easier, they wouldn't be as enjoyable, but I also don't think my experience would be harmed if there was an easy mode option for other people to enjoy. However, that's like empirically not the case for everyone. There are a lot of very vocal people who say if there was an easy mode, my experience would be diminished because other people could have the same fun I'm having, and I don't understand that at all. That's not how my brain is wired, but it's also true about other people.
I would like, disagree like on a fundamental level with that line of thinking, but I think there is a reasonable defense of like not having an easy mode in a game that is designed to be hard. Someone could play it, say, oh, this is hard, and then very like quickly be tempted to go on easy mode and sort of rob themselves of the experience of trying it on the intended way of playing it, I guess, for lack of a better word. That's just me like dipping my toe into something that doesn't matter to me anymore. So you could absolutely like take my opinion as garbage on that, but I think that is a more reasoned complaint about the possibility of an easy mode in a difficult game.
I like that. It also analogizes to my feelings on like microtransactions, where it's like even if they're optional, even if they're just cosmetic, like them being available affects me playing because I think to myself, like, man, I'm stuck in this part. I could just pay $5. No, I'm not going to. But now I have it in the back of my head, and now I'm like stressed out about it. Like it actually does, like psychologically on some level, affect you even when you're not engaging with those systems. And also they do design games with that stuff in mind. So there's a couple different ways to approach it, but I don't think that's a bad observation, Leon, is that like you're kind of playing like chicken with yourself when you have other options.
Yeah, like back when I played Catherine.
That's a real good pull.
Okay. I played it on the normal level. Like there's like easy and normal and hard, and I was like, I will play this on like, the average level of play this game, and it's still very, very hard. I mean, I won, so good. But yeah, there were moments where I was like, oh, maybe I should just go back and start this on easy. But I didn't. I resisted that temptation, although it was super hard. Yeah.
I really like the way that Alien Isolation did it, where I started up the game and it was like, these are your difficulty levels, and then there was like, I think there were 4. There was like an easy mode, a normal mode, a hard mode, and then like an impossible mode. And when I highlighted the hard mode, it was like, listen, this is the way we made the game to be played. This is, as far as we are concerned, this is the optimal experience. The alien is threatening enough that you will like recognize it from the movies. It won't do stupid things where you're like, what the hell is wrong with its AI? It was like, this is the optimal experience. And I was like, there. Okay, I'll take that. But I liked the option where it was like, if I didn't want to, if I just wanted to have a more like amusing experience as opposed to a stressful one, that I could take it. But I like that they were like, listen, this is the way that we made the game to be played. This is the experience that we wanted. I was like, I will try that then, sir. Or ma'am.
Yes, thank you. I will take that one. Yeah, I don't think there's an easy solution to any of this. The only thing I would add before we basically wrap the show up is that I think it's wild to think about video games as the only medium that has this problem. Like, no one watches a David Lynch film and they're like, I really could use a mode where he just explains the symbolism. Like, if there's a cut of the film, oh, I guess Blade Runner kind of does that. Never mind. There is one analog at least, but it's wild that no one ever asks for like idiot cuts of films or like a annotated art gallery where there's like little arrows pointing to all the features in there or something. Yeah. Video games are weird.
Yeah.
I agree.
It'll take a while before we figure them out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You want to do one more question and then go?
I have to look one up. Let me see here. I don't know what this means. I'm just going to say it. Hopefully it means something to you. Jessica Sims says, if given the chance, would Johnny try a sour toe cocktail? I hope that means something to you because it's gibberish to me.
I don't know what that means.
Sour toe?
That's what it says. Uh-oh, he's Googling.
Yeah.
Johnny doesn't know
give me a
a
second
thing.
here. I don't know what a sour toe cocktail is.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going
He's
on an
excited.
adventure.
I like this.
I don't know if I would, like, I'm not sure this is... Oh, okay.
Well, what is it?
I typed sour toe cocktail into Google, and the first suggestion was sour toe cocktail legal?
Well, yeah, because apparently a sour toe cocktail features a real mummified human toe.
Jesus.
Yeah, apparently it's from Dawson City in the Yukon, and apparently it's just a simple drink, a shot of whiskey, usually Yukon Jack, with a mummified human toe in it.
Why does it give it a good flavor? Because I can't imagine it would.
No, I think it's more along a rite of passage, associated with basically frostbite in the region or something like that.
Oh, no.
Okay, so the story I've got here, okay,
This is wild.
reads this. In the 1920s, rum-running Lincoln brothers Louis and Otto got caught in a blizzard. Louis put his foot through a patch of ice and soaked his foot. When the brothers got back to their cabin, Louis's right foot was frozen solid. To prevent gangrene, Otto used his axe to chop off Louis's toe. He placed the toe in a jar of alcohol to commemorate the event. In 1973, legend has it that Captain Dick Stevenson found the jar and the toe in a remote cabin. He came up with the idea of the Sour Toe Cocktail Club, an exclusive club with one membership requirement. In order to gain admittance to the club, potential members must drink the legendary Sour Toe Cocktail. There's just one rule. You can drink it fast, you can drink it slow, but your lips must touch that gnarly toe. In 2013, one man swallowed the toe. On purpose. He was run out of town, but he came back seeking forgiveness from the people of Dawson City.
Look, I mean, no, you can't get mad at him for accidentally swallowing the toe. It's not
No,
like...
intentionally. He did it on purpose.
Oh.
Yes, on purpose.
Oh, well, in that case, what a dick. Never mind. I retract my mercy.
But they have...
So if
a
I had a
replacement.
chance, would I drink a sour toe cocktail?
Is that on your bucket list now?
Not really, no.
Good.
I mean, it's not on my bucket list, but I probably would do it just because it'd be a weird story.
Yeah.
Apparently, over 69,000 paying customers are reported to have tried the concoction.
Well, what do they say about it? Does it taste like toe? I mean, is it awful?
It probably just tastes like whiskey, man. Like...
There are 69,000 Canadians who are nasty.
You bet we are.
Okay.
Also, 69,000 nice.
Okay. You did that. Anything you guys want to say before we go?
I discovered this weekend that I am empty inside.
Aww.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Although, apparently you survived the surgery, so that's nice.
Lost a lot of weight.
I'm going to send you guys a picture of the Danny DeVito cutout so you can use that as the title card if you want, Leon.
I'm going to have to.